Welcome back. It's still a new day. Today is 1st of December, and we are on for the interview for today. And today we're going to be talking about stigma on HIV and AIDS patients. Our guest in this live studio today is Mrs. Agu Doris Adeze, and she is the guidance and counselor, the embodiment of Love Academy. And just to go a quick background on HIV and AIDS, we all know the history. The virus is something that has been going on in the society for a donkey years right now. The history of HIV and AIDS traces back to the mid 20th century when the virus is believed to have crossed the non human primates of humans in Central Africa. Scientists and scientists estimate that HIV to one the most common strain originated from chimpanzees in the southeast Cameroon and entered the human population through bushmeat hunting. And the virus gradually spread through the region via urbanization, migration, and other social challenges. Good morning, Mrs. Agu Adeze,
Good
and
morning.
welcome to the new day.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so can you tell us what is HIV and AIDS to the people out there that just know it as HIV and AIDS and it's something that you're supposed to avoid? Can you just give us a background knowledge on what this thing is?
Okay, HIV/AIDS. First and foremost, HIV is called the human immunodeficiency virus, and this virus is actually caused. It attacks the immune system. Usually, when it attacks one's immune system, it reduces what we call your T cells, also known as the CD4 cells. And these are supposed to be lymphocytes. They are actually your body fighters, as a matter of fact. When we have diseases attack our bodies, we call them body fighters that come up to fight or mop up those diseases. So once you have this virus, as a matter of fact, it attacks your T cells or your CD4 cells. And then also, HIV/AIDS can be transmitted via different means. One, we see transmission happening through body fluids, such as semen, such as vaginal fluids, breast milk, when it has to do with mother and child. We also see this in transfusion, blood transfusion, especially in countries where they do not screen bloods properly, or in hospitals where they are not efficient in screening bloods properly. So transmission can take place through these means. And then the symptoms of HIV includes fever, catarrh, cough, things like headache, fatigue, and then the swelling of the lymph nodes and all of that. So HIV actually is just the virus. But when it gets to the advanced stage, at this point, it has broken down one's immune system and destroyed it totally. Then we say it has become acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, which is the AIDS. So one aspect is the virus coming in, and the other aspect is when it's not treated properly. As a matter of fact, what's the treatment for HIV/AIDS? There are what we call retroviral drugs, antiretroviral drugs, which are the ARTs. And so, if one can take their proper ARTs as at when due and stick to their prescription as as given, they will not come down with AIDS.
Okay, so in that same thoughts, same line of thought, because there's a question I wanted to ask you, especially from the history,
Yeah,
but before I go there,
yeah.
that and that same thought, when you are talking about, the transfer of this disease from one person to another, is it the only method of transfer of getting infected by this disease? You mentioned fluids, cements, and the like.
Yes,
Is it the only
if
means?
not, we also can have them through unprotected sex as well. When you sleep with someone and you're not protected. Unfortunately, sorry to say, these days we even see there are cases of protected sex in quotes that one still comes down with the HIV. Probably in the process something goes wrong, and then it's transmitted to the individual. We also see this transmission happening via needles and syringes as well. Probably when someone with HIV/AIDS has used a syringe or a needle and then it pricks another person who doesn't have the virus. And this is very common amongst what we call the health professionals, those who work in the hospitals. I even had a case of a friend who got infected because I'm a med lab scientist by profession. I had a friend who got infected via needle. The syringe she used to take patients to take what we call phlebotomy to collect blood from a particular patient, and the patient was infected. Unfortunately, while she was trying to close it, it
Pricks
it
her.
pricked her, and that was it. But actually, she didn't go down with it because there are treatments one can take within that window period before it begins to escalate or grow in your body, and then it can stop.
I thought that the virus cannot survive outside, you know, the bloodstream or fluids, because once the blood is spilled,
Yes, but in
you
this
have to also be cut in order to get that to get
yes,
it.
but in this case, when you talk about prick, needle prick is a direct contact
Okay.
from the mouth of the patient's blood, from the mouth of the needle. Don't forget, you just drew the
So it's
patient's blood,
fresh.
so it's still fresh, and then it pricks one.
Okay.
So they
So
can
it has a
look.
possibility
Yes, there's a
in that. But
possibility.
once the blood drops
Yes.
and somebody who is pricked and touches it, how long does the virus stay
On the surface.
on the surface before it gets,
It doesn't stay as long as it's on the surface. It doesn't stay so long, except you have a cut. Actually,
Okay.
once it's on the surface, you really cannot
get infected?
get infected, except you have an injury somewhere. So there's a means or there's a contact point. So it has to be like there's contact at every given point in time. Just like we see the contact between breastfeeding mothers and their children.
children.
Exactly. And then,
So if you are continuously using your antiretroviral drugs,
yes.
would you be able to have unprotected sex with somebody else and not get the person infected?
Yes, because your viral load could come very low, as a matter of fact. If you're very religious and you keep to your antiretroviral drugs, it will reduce what we call the viral load you get. And then that way, if one sticks to their treatment properly, a time will even come they might not they won't transmit or transmit to another person, because when the viral load is very low, that means the virus in that person's system has really come to a significant level, very low significant level. It wouldn't even
Is this
transmit.
medically proven that
Yeah.
you will not be able to transmit, and once you are infected,
Once
and you're taking your antiretroviral drugs every now and then?
it depends on the viral load,
Viral
and
load.
yes, exactly, it depends on how long you've taken your treatment and how reduced it is. And don't forget, we run a test that shows your CD4 count. Once your CD4 count is below 200 cells, okay, per millimeter of blood, then actually your viral load is still high, okay? But anything higher than that, 300, your CD4 cells are still 300, 400, anything above 200 and above, which means there's no case of transfer.
Wow.
Wow. That's nice. Okay. So we're talking about stigmatization
Yeah.
of HIV patients, HIV AIDS patients.
Yeah.
So I want to know, what are the common stereotypes or misconceptions about individuals living with HIV AIDS?
Yeah, there are a lot of misconceptions. For example, people think that HIV/AIDS is a death sentence. The moment you have HIV/AIDS, you are good as dead, or you're dead on arrival. But that's not true, actually. People with HIV/AIDS can still live normal lives as long as they stick to their antiretroviral drugs. So if they stick to their treatment and they are religious. When I mean religious, I mean taking their treatment as at when due, then they can live normal lives. Another myth and misconception people have is that they feel when you come close to someone with HIV/AIDS, you likely can contact the disease. So that's actually one of the major reasons for the stigmatization. So they tend to avoid
Avoid.
them because they think that when you come close to them, I don't know, but that's not true. Body contact doesn't make you contact HIV/AIDS. That you come close to someone with HIV/AIDS doesn't necessarily mean that you come down with the virus. It's only when there is that contact or a means of transmission, then you can contact it. So these are some of the myths and misconceptions about it.
Okay. So, how does stigma? We've talked about why these common stereotypes.
Yes.
So, patients that suffer this stigmatization from people, from the society, how does it affect their mental health and emotions?
Very good. That's a very good one because their mental health are usually affected. First and foremost, let's talk about their mental health. When it comes to their mental health, you find out that in a case of one with HIV/AIDS, with AIDS, they first of all begin to experience what we call, okay, I want to talk about the physical effect before I go to the mental effect. Now, first and foremost, the physical effect, they begin to suffer things like isolation, social isolation. They are avoided. They have what we call poor adherence to treatment. That's because in their mind, they begin to suffer fear that people around them now know that they have HIV/AIDS, and as a result of that, sometimes they are, that fear has come on them, and so they no longer keep to the regimen of their drugs. And then we also have what we call delayed diagnosis and treatment. They become reluctant to go for treatment because they don't want you to identify them as an HIV patient. So they're kind of reluctant. It's only when you have been able to counsel them properly and show them some sort of love and empathy, then they can feel good and come out from that, from feeling withdrawn. But most times and in most cases, we see them having delayed diagnosis and treatment. The fear in them tells them that no matter what they do, they will likely die and stuff like that. So why treat and all of that? So these are things going on in their mind, and then it makes them withdrawn. Then if I should come back to the mental health, actually it causes anxiety and depression. We see HIV/AIDS patients having so much of anxiousness because of course there's fear of death, fear of the unknown, fear of a lot of things. So they begin to get depressed. And one of the things that goes with depression is isolation. They begin to isolate themselves from interacting with other people. We also see cases of low self-esteem. At this point, they begin to lose their low self-esteem. They reduce their social interactions with people and all of that. Reasons for this is because they feel that individuals will stigmatize them once they know. Imagine if you have a brother or a sister who has HIV. It's only because you're knowledgeable now that will make you treat them better. But the truth is, ordinarily, you want to stay away from them. Yes. So this causes low self-esteem. We also see social isolation. They begin to isolate themselves, just like I said, fear of identifying them as HIV carriers or as HIV/AIDS patients makes them isolate. So they don't attend functions. They try to be on their own, mark their own, stay in their own space and all of that. And you're wondering, suddenly this person is withdrawn. This person no longer feels comfortable hanging out. What's happening? That's because he or she is actually going through all of these mental health impacts, actually.
Interesting. I love it. How do people overcome stigma, really? I mean, some of this stigma come from family, friends, people whom you are supposed to be looking up to. to help you go through that process of stigmatization from the wider society? Are there specific ways that people who live with this disease can overcome the stigma?
Yeah, there are. First and foremost, they should allow themselves. They should first and foremost know that HIV/AIDS is not a death sentence. So they should begin to get engaged in things that can make them feel good about themselves. Things that can actually, how do I say, develop their self-esteem. For example, they can get involved in exercises, recreational activities, hanging out. That way they can boost their self-esteem. Because don't forget that this is a mind thing. I've been stigmatized. Once the society knows that I have HIV/AIDS, they wouldn't want to relate with me as normal. So there is a need to begin to get involved, to start working on my mind, that the fact that I have HIV/AIDS doesn't make me less human, doesn't make me to have less potentials. I can still live my full life. So I'll go for my treatment and then get involved in things that can cheer me up and make me feel better. Another thing that they can do is that they should also acknowledge their feelings and make sure that these feelings are normal. They should open up. For example, as an HIV/AIDS patient who's going through a lot, you can go to someone who knows better than you and talk to the person. You can seek counsel with a health professional, and that way you can tell them what you're going through and they can help you on a daily basis on how to overcome these challenges. Another way to reduce stigmatization is that we expect that we can use our social media forums to empower our people. How? By telling them that, by educating them that these myths and misconceptions about HIV/AIDS are not real, that people with HIV/AIDS should be shown empathy, should be shown understanding, they should be shown love. You understand? If you have a friend or a relative or even a colleague who has HIV/AIDS, don't put the person away. Have understanding and know that they're passing through it's just a disease. That doesn't make them less of themselves. So this awareness should be out there. I'm sure this is one of the reasons we're having this as well. It's also a means of educating the public that they should treat people with HIV/AIDS better. And then another way of reducing stigmatization will be we should have laws put in place to protect the rights of HIV/AIDS patients. For example, there should be a law that should take care of the fact that if you treat someone with HIV/AIDS less than they should be treated or less than normal, you go to jail or you pay some form of fine for treating them less than human. So these things can be done to reduce the stigmatization.
Okay, so I want to know, we've talked about how friends, family should, curb the idea of stigmatization.
Yes.
What role does healthcare providers do to help with curbing this issue of stigmatization in society?
Yes, healthcare providers. It will still amaze you that there are healthcare providers who still show stigmatization. I must be very frank. So healthcare providers should be sent on trainings that will educate them on how to handle people with HIV/AIDS. I once worked as a med lab scientist, as an intern med lab scientist with AB Zaria Teaching Hospital. Now, as an intern, nobody is going to allow you counsel a HIV/AIDS patient. We had senior colleagues, specialized persons who had gone for trainings that would, once someone has been screened and they've been confirmed positive with HIV, they are sent to that person. And why are they sent? Because not everybody has the skill on how to counsel others. So they're sent to that particular office or personnel to counsel them. So he or she has to talk to them and make them feel very comfortable and give them hope, because the disease itself, just like many other disease, brings fear. But why that of HIV AIDS is worse is because it has its stigmatization around it. So the person is not just battling with the fear of the disease, but also battling with the stigmatization. He starts thinking, hey, if my people know that I have HIV, they will just start avoiding me. If my husband, it could even be a partner, and so on and so forth. So the fear of the stigmatization is there, the fear of the disease, having contacted the disease, so he or she is going to be dealing with a lot. But health practitioners or health professionals should be trained properly on how to begin to talk to them, counsel them properly. And when they counsel them, they don't just stop at counseling. Health professionals should also take time to extend their activities, their services to these patients, even outside the hospital. You should be able to know where these patients live, where they are at a given time. Call to check up on them. They are supposed to have times when they come for their antiretroviral drugs. You haven't seen the person and they've not showed up in the hospital, but today is their day of they're supposed to have consultation. You should call, put a call across and know how they're doing. When we do these things, they will feel more comfortable. They will find love and they will feel they are cared for. They will find empathy and understanding. And I guess that will go a long way to make them believe more in the health practitioners.
Okay. So I want to know, can you share with us, because of the sake of our viewers, can you share with us like success stories of individuals with these cases, people that have overcome this stigma, how they went about it, so that people out there that are facing this same issue can learn from this and let this be like a guiding point or a hope for them?
Okay, when you talk about success story, you mean right here in Nigeria? Because I've gone through a lot of HIV stories, both the ones that are not in Nigeria and the ones around. Okay, I'll start with one that happened in my location, where a childhood friend actually contacted the disease. But in this case, I'm sorry to say, it was a rape case actually. Yeah, so we were much younger, and after she did, it, I'm sorry to also say we lost her actually, because at that time the awareness for HIV/AIDS had not become so much. So the antiretroviral drugs were there, but people were not really accessing them as they were meant to. So we lost her after a while. But I must say this, that she went through stigmatization quite alright. But when she got closer to the point of leaving, the family realized, they came to a point of realization that this is our daughter and we shouldn't have treated her this way. So she got that love towards the end of her life, because her mother later forgave her for whatever. But forgiving her, I mean, it wasn't even her fault. So the family later realized that it wasn't even her fault. This was just an event that happened. So she got the love, she got the friendship she was actually meant to have had at the latter part of her life. And she died happy, I must say, quite all right. And other success stories, there are people who have lived. I know of a story of a 28-year-old Kenyan who was diagnosed with HIV/AIDS, and after disclosing her status to her family, they rejected her quite all right also, and she was forced to live on the streets, you know. But her name was Sarah. But Sarah faced this stigmatization and discrimination in her community, and she eventually found support from a local HIV support group that came to do an awareness in their community. So they found her there in Kenya, and then they co-opted her, and that was how they began to give her treatment. And after a while, she became better, and she devoted the rest of her life to telling people about HIV. And then every time they went for workshops, she became a life example and story that, hey, HIV does not kill anybody. After all, I'm not dead. I'm still here and I'm doing my work. I'm happy. I have my normal life and all of that. So,
Wow, interesting. What a discussion. I mean, it's this kind of discussions are one that are quite uplifting, and something that you would learn and then push. And just because of time, we'd have to end it here. But you have actually given us a lot of information regarding this particular topic on stigma around HIV and AIDS.
yeah, and I have this to say before we close, that even if you're out there and you are a person with HIV/AIDS, you don't need to feel stigmatized and you don't have to give up on yourself. You need to embrace Christ, embrace the love of God first and foremost, and know that whatever has happened in your life, you must know that God forgives us all. So forgive yourself, find a way of coming to terms that this is my life now, and then go for treatment. As you go for treatment, stick to your treatment. I assure you, you can live your normal life and don't feel stigmatized. If you have the circle of friends that are stigmatizing you, please change that circle of friends. You find love around others, because today we are creating this awareness, because today is World HIV/AIDS
AIDS
Day.
Day.
So we're creating the awareness that the world should show more inclusiveness to people with HIV/AIDS. The world should show them empathy and love, social interaction, have more social interaction with them. So if you're out there and you have HIV/AIDS, it's not over yet. God still loves you. God cares about you. God is interested in you. And that reason for which you were born, the purpose of your life, you can still achieve it. And you don't need to die before your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I
Thank
truly
you so
appreciate it. I hope the drug is still available.
Yes.
I mean, the antiretroviral.
Yes, the
drugs.
antiretroviral drugs are all over. We can find them in the different hospitals. For example, in our hospital, the Embodiment of Love Academy, we have a hospital called Arike Specialty Hospital. There, we show love and care. Even in the government settings, I'm sure the local governments, the maternities, they are there. So please reach out. Don't die in isolation. There are treatments and you will live your normal life. Just eat well with good nutrition. You and your drugs, you would live as long as you would want to.
Thank you so much.
Mrs. Agu Doris Agu. She is guidance and counselor at the Embodiment of Love Academy, giving us insights into HIV and AIDS. I'm sure you must have learned a thing or two. We would actually have this posted on our platforms for other people who may not be able to catch up real time. Many thanks for being part of the program. We're back shortly for the next discussion. Just stay with us. Welcome back. This is New Day on Signature Television. So today we switch gears to the discussion regarding the recurring issues of Igbophobia. Very recently, there's this comment made by a renowned publisher of a newspaper and a journalist on Arise Television, stating clearly that, quoting TOS, that Igbos don't sell their lands, and that caused a lot of proud reactions across the country. And many people even directly asking him to say where he wanted a land and he would get. Today we would talk a little more about that and how the media, sometimes push these narratives that are false, half-baked thoughts, and in a more proper perspective with Ben Etiaba, who is an opinion leader and a public affairs analyst. Good to have you. Good morning.
Good morning, my brother.
Good morning, Ben.
Really happy to be in your studio this morning once again.
All right. Has there been any time within your lifetime that you have ever heard that Igbos don't sell lands to outsiders?
Not at all. Not in the past, not now, and not in the future, I'm sure. Every tribe will have their own ways of dealing with land and land issues. We have ours. We have our culture. We have our tradition. But nowhere am I aware of that we have sort of discriminated against anybody when it comes to the issue of land. And I'll say this to you. We take the issue of land seriously. I wouldn't want to join the bashing of the respected Ruben Abati. That's not why I'm here. But he has his comments have sparked a conversation around the issue of land in Igbo land. We revere land. We take the land issues around land as spiritual matters. The Igbos consider land as something that is held in trust for future generation. In other words, that you don't own it actually, that while you're around, you take care of the land and hand it down to the next generation. But we also have to differentiate between commercial land and ancestral land. Ancestral land, you're not expected to sell. The reason is that if you do sell those, then the next generation won't have any land to use. So those are sort of dealt that way. But commercial land that people buy and sell, nobody will refuse to sell land to you because you're a Yoruba person or a Hausa person or Ijo or Ichekiri or whatever. It has never happened and will never happen. People sell land when they have to, for good reasons. I mean, some people buy, speculate, and then sell. Then you have the issue of communal land too. Communal lands, the community will decide what to do with it. And I think what he was quoting T.O.S. Benson as having encountered was the issue of communal land. The community will decide what to do with the land. And if they decide that that land is not going to be sold or held in perpetuity or held until they decide jointly what to do with it, that is their decision. They have not made that decision because they believe a Yoruba person who is married to an Igbo woman will be coming to buy, and they will not sell to him. And I say this to you: if a community decides that a particular land is not for sale, they won't sell to anybody, not even if you're from that community. So it has nothing to do with tribe. That's where he got it wrong, and that's where he quoted T.O.S. Benson, I believe, out of context. Because after all, the Mbiri people loved the man. They didn't sell it because they already would have decided what to do with that land. But to show that they were not discriminating against him and that they really were happy with him, especially the way he was taking care of their daughter, they donated land to him. And he also repaid that gesture by developing that land into a post office that is still there till today. So I don't know why he chose to say that. The only thing that I can think of is that, sort of jumping quickly to conclusion because of what he had heard without thinking deeply. Usually I'll accredit Abati, who I know, and I communicate with him. I'll sort of credit him with deep thoughts. But I don't think any deep thinking went into this, because if he had thought about it, he wouldn't have said what he said.
All right. You've actually put it in context, and it's quite understandable and clear. Once it's an ancestral land, it is not possible. The community says that they cannot sell this land. Even if you are a member of the community,
yes,
they will sell to you.
Exactly.
But sometimes this land belongs to individuals within the community. If they decide to sell the land, would it have a conflict with the community?
No. If any piece of land belongs to individuals, it's no longer community land. It's your personal property. Okay? You can do whatever you want with it. You can sell it to anybody. I'll give you an example. I live in Independence Layout here in Enugu. And close to me is the lovely home of my good friend, Tayo Adenaike. It's Ogun State. Tayo has lived in that place, one of the best homes in Independence Layout. He bought his land, and he has other properties in Enugu. Nobody said they won't sell to Tayo because it's not Igbo. And there are many stories like that. So, it's very easy to try to demean a race, a people, a tribe, with sweeping general statements. That's what's unfair about what Ruben has said. And like I said, let me not join in bashing him. What others are doing that, and it's regrettable, because the only thing I see actually that is done wrong, anybody can get anything wrong. Anybody can say things that they didn't think deeply about. The only place I'll fault him is that his posture post that statement, especially when the lady was trying to sort of bring up what people were saying about the way she was put down wasn't good. But let me just stop at that.
Okay, sir. I want to know, how has Igbophobia affected the Igbo community, the economic structure, political and social standing in Nigeria?
Okay. We've been talking about marginalization for so long, and I'm sure that Nigerians know that Igbos are actually marginalized. And what you find is that other tribes from time to time will say, hey, we are marginalized too, in order to counter what Igbos are saying and to use it to get whatever it is they want. But it's very clear that if you look at what's going on, the way the national cake is being shared, I don't think it's fair at the moment where we're running a consumption-led society. So we're relying on things being shared, and it's not being equitably shared. So it has affected the Igbos like that. But when you talk about Igbophobia, I think that people are scared of the Igbos. I don't know why. I just honestly don't know why. They feel, I get the sense, that I feel that Igbos are too smart, and if you give them a chance, they will dominate. And this hasn't just started today. I mean, this started even before independence. Recall that at independence, the South, including the Southwest, South, Southeast, were ready for independence, but the North not. So the colonial masters thought that the only way to get this thing to work is to skew I'm trying to choose my words carefully here, the handover in such a way that the North will emerge as leading Nigeria. And that happened. Unfortunately, we had the coup, or then the counter coup, the Civil War, various military interventions, and of course today back to democracy. But this thing has become entrenched in various ways. I'll give you some ways that that this has happened. Like when you talk about the geopolitical zones, the number of states in each zone. Northwest, for instance, has 7 states. The whole of the Southeast, 5 states.
5. Okay,
South. The rest, 6 states. So that's, and when you are running, like I said, a consumption-led society, things are shared based on states, based on local governments, and these figures are skewed against you. And when the population, the census is conducted, again, we keep shouting that the numbers allocated to the southeast are really not right. So these things work against us. That's, it's a bit unfortunate, but it happens. People, and you've seen it during elections. People's get treated the wrong way, get the wrong end of the stick. And it's all part of let's keep these people down. But also, we have to look at the other side of it. The other side of it is that it has made the Igbos to know that they are on their own. That to survive, they need to devise ways and means of doing so. So you find, to me, in Nigeria, that the Igbos seem better prepared to encounter and to resist and to withstand shocks in the system. So that's the other side of it. So sometimes people are trying to beat you down, but they're only showing you how to survive. So that's what's happened. Igbophobia, yes, it is real. Yeah.
All right, and speaking of it being real, I think Iwasho just recently said something like, there is a calculated attempt, in fact it's an unwritten document from other tribes to make sure that these guys don't ascend to the presidency. I'm wondering if you feel that way.
The Igbos feel that way, I can tell you that. And the agitations you see here and there, I'm talking about the genuine agitations, not these people running around killing people in the name of Biafra and all that. No, genuine agitations actually are based around what you've just said, that sense of injustice. But I'll say this to you, for as long as Nigeria is trying to hold any tribe down, I don't care if it's the Igbos being held down, the Yorubas or the Efiks or just sort of houses of Fulanis or whatever. For as long as we're hell bent on holding any part of the system down, we'll never get rise up to our potential, full potential. We can only thrive when we encourage each other to grow and grow at our own pace. And you see, you can only be as strong as your weakest link. Remember this. So if you're trying to inflict own wounds, self-inflicted wounds, scoring own goals, for as long as you're doing that, you cannot achieve as a nation. And you cannot even be good at nation building if you're looking at sort of your people that way. For how long can we continue trying to become a nation instead of a country? I mean, we found independence in 1960. Okay, I am 61 now, and Nigeria attained independence at 1960, so with Nigeria 64 now. So for 64 years, we've not been able to build a nation. And we know why. Because we're trying to scheme against this tribe or out scheme the other one. And again, let's look at even our elections, our politics. You find that whenever an election is called, it just doesn't matter who's at the head, whether the leader is doing well or badly, or whether the candidates are the right ones or wrong ones. We vote according to tribes, along tribal lines. From time to time, there's let's not overplay this.
Okay.
Like the last election, you also found that
it happened.
Yes, it happened that the youth of the country voted a particular way, but the rest is history, is what I would say. So let us stop playing the tribal game against each other. It won't serve us well.
We've been talking about Igbophobia, marginalization of the Igbo tribe. I want to know what efforts have the Igbo community put in order to address or counter-react this Igbophobia problem that we have?
If any, don't blame the Igbos. You cannot blame the victim for being victimized. If any tribe can be said to represent what Nigeria should be, it is the Igbo tribe. It's the Igbo man that will leave the remotest part of Igbo land and go to the remotest part of the north and establish, go to the remotest part of the west and establish, south, everywhere. Okay, and wherever you find them settling, they make friends there. Okay, they contribute to the society, pay their taxes there. Even in some cases even become a part of the traditional institution there. I've seen this in the north, and sort of honorary titles in the southwest. It's only the Igbo people that can do that. I mean, sometimes one or two, you get some odd experience the other way around. So it's not, the Igbos are doing enough to let Nigerians integrate them into what's going on. So and I'm not saying it's not for me to come and say, oh, they should have done that or the other one or this one. What is Nigeria doing to ensure that every part of Nigeria gets and feels a sense of belonging? That should be the question the other way around.
Okay.
Quite interesting, really. One would wonder, really, what role our leaders really play in all of this unity or unifying our nation, much more than just what we feel as, Igbophobia. How much role have our leaders played in connecting with other regions? They said that the failure of the leadership, it was what gave rise to, Simon Nnamdi Kanu. I mean, these people wouldn't have in any way come up or even have huge followership if there was adequate leadership. Do you think so?
Yes, but not adequate leadership the way I think you're sort of trying to present it. Everything in Africa, I will say this, begins and ends with leadership. Without the right leadership, nothing can work. Health cannot work. Education sector cannot work. The economy cannot be gotten right. So social and political cohesion cannot be there. So you find that what is going on and what we're feeling in terms of agitations are all directly related to the lack of the right leadership as we see it. But don't forget that, like I said earlier, even with the agitation, there are two types of agitators. There are those who are quite clearly saying that we don't agree, we can't carry on with it this way. And there are others who are latching on to that agitation to kill, to maim, to kidnap, to terrorize, to ask for funds from all over the world. So that to them, that is business. That they are. So we need to differentiate between those two. And my prayer is that in not too a distant future, in fact tomorrow, if possible, that we see the release of Mazen Nnamdi Kanu, because I'm not here to sort of, that's not why I'm here, to jump on a popular bandwagon and begin to say things because they sound right politically. I'm not doing that at all. But the reason why I'm lending my voice to this and saying this is that I believe it will help to dampen, lower the temperature of agitations in the Southeast. You see, think about it. We've been losing one day every Monday, one day every week. Every Monday, nothing happens in the Southeast. And the reason we're told is because Nnamdi Kanu is held incommunicado or without being released. Okay, you can't punish your people because something is happening to one of us. But having said that, two wrongs cannot be right. Let us pray that the young man is released so that even the issues that he's advocating and fighting for, which all of us, by the way, can feel and see, just that way, want to approach these things from different perspectives in different ways. So let's see if these things can be resolved. We want a Nigeria that works. I always say that the Igbo man is the biggest beneficiary of Project Nigeria. I don't want to see balkanization of my country. I'm proud anywhere I go in the world to say I'm from Nigeria. And if you want to know, Nigeria is the most powerful black nation in the world, and I'm sure you know it. And Africans see us that way. Most Africans want to be Nigerians. Okay? So I don't know why we keep hurting ourselves, why we cannot take Nigeria from where it is now. Unfortunately, we find ourselves to where we should be. But I'm praying that we're turning the corner. I'm praying that the current leadership we have is slowly turning that corner, moving in the right direction.
Simon Ekpa was just arrested and in Finland, and the army is asking for his extradition back into Nigeria. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, it is now a judicial matter. The matter is in court, albeit not in Nigeria. The military obviously intervening, dealing with it. Unfortunately, I don't believe we have any embassy in Finland. I don't think we do have one. So it makes it more difficult diplomatically to resolve these issues. But I'll leave it in the hands of the Finnish authorities and Nigerian authorities. I'm not here to tell the government what to do. They know exactly what to do. All I can say is that we've been feeling the bad end of the stick from his pronouncements, and I don't want to say more than that.
You don't think his arrest would cause peace or would continue to deteriorate
Time will
the
tell.
peace?
Time will tell.
Okay.
Time will tell.
You're advocating for the release of Nnamdi Kanu. Do you think his release would also help with dousing some of the issues that we're facing here in the Southeast?
I've said that already. I'll be repeating myself if I carry on with that. Yes, but I think so. I think so because, like you said, he has quite a huge following. And what you find now is that my people, when they want to become popular, they begin to sound like Nnamdi Kanu is their leader. Okay? And say the things that will make followers of Nnamdi Kanu fall in love with them. I'm not here to play to the gallery. I'm here to say what I believe to be right and what I think should be done. And I believe that genuinely, if that is done, that the temperature will lower in the southeast and lower in Nigeria. Insecurity anywhere in Nigeria is insecurity everywhere in Nigeria. And we must see these things like that and act accordingly.
So how much engagement do you think that we can do as Igbos with other regions? Because again, another thought is, okay, there's a fear of these people. But is this something that you could do? I think I spoke to someone earlier about it. He says that Igbo should try to de-escalate their loudness. Like they're too loud, they're too brilliant. Like, is it possible to reduce it, so that you wouldn't look like you are trying to go in there to dominate? I mean, you have the business acumen, you're the most traveled people, you are the richest, in fact. So, I mean, it is fair to say it's okay to be scared of these people.
I don't know where you get the point that we're the richest from. I don't know what
Aren't we?
I don't know.
I mean, according to the latest
No.
ranking of the richest people on the African continent,
Yes.
Igbos are actually number 2. No, number 1, in fact.
Dangote is richer. They're richer than Dangote.
I mean, if you talk about richest, you're talking about the population. Now there's one.
Okay. I see. As a group.
Yes.
Oh, yes. No, but that's because it depends on what you're looking at. Okay. If you're thinking about individual wealth, yeah, maybe you're right. I'm not looking at. I've never looked at individual wealth. Okay. I always try to see things from an integrated point of view. If you're looking at corporate wealth, of course, I believe the Southwest, we're ahead. Okay? Yes, individuals here and there. Okay, that's not bad. We're not complaining about those. But how much money does one human being need to survive and do well and even be able to help others? But if we can club together, pull together, and that is why when the Igbo man dies, his wealth dies with him. Think about the names, the rich men and women of the past, the billionaires of the 70s and 80s and 90s and early 2000s and all that, gone. Their wealth all disappeared. So I will rather want to see something that is sustainable, whereby this thing continues, whether or not the promoters of those businesses and creators of those wealths are alive or not. But there are some good examples too. If you look at Qtix PLC, we just buried Ajuro Zodike a few weeks ago in Nnewi, my hometown. And the company that he founded, Qtix PLC, cables and all that, foremost cable manufacturing company in Nigeria, a public company today, going from strength to strength. So we have a few examples of that, but I'd like to see more. That's what I'm saying.
So, in terms of political leadership for the South, are there specific ways you think that we should change our trajectory? Because most people think that Igbos play politics with emotions rather than the real things.
You're right.
So
You're right. Yes, you're right. But then, who doesn't? I've just told you that when elections are called, people vote along tribal lines. That's politics of emotion and tribalism. But you see, but addressing there's a serious question you asked, so let me not try to belittle it. I believe that the way forward for us, for the Igbos, will be not to put all our eggs in one basket. That will never serve us well. But to diversify our portfolio, political portfolio in quotes. Okay? If you check what is going on now, we've had a regional party. At the last election, we had a popular party nationally by very quickly put together coalition of the willing. And then you have two national parties who have been there from day one. It is difficult, very, very difficult in today's Nigeria to produce a natural national leadership that will not come from one of the two top parties. It's very difficult to see that. So if we see that and act accordingly and populate those parties with the right credible candidates who will be there to serve everyone. I'm not saying put in a candidate that will come and serve the Southeast. No. I mean, depending on which position you're going for. If you're going for state executive position, of course you'll serve your people. State House of Assembly, you serve your people. National Assembly, you're making laws for the whole country, not just your people. That's in the Senate and the House of Reps. In the presidency, you're going to serve the whole country. So we need to populate the right parties, the national parties, with credible candidates who will go there and do Nigeria proud. That's what I'm advocating. That's what the change should be. Rather than us putting all our eggs in one basket, it won't serve us well. We've tried that and it has not worked. So let's try something else.
Okay, in the angle of developing the country, how has this recurring issue of Ibuphobia affected the impact of national unity and development in Nigeria?
Okay, we have a saying in Igbo land. That means that if you're holding a man down or a woman down, you're holding yourself down. You can never rise up to run or walk or do whatever you should because you're busy holding somebody down. Okay, so how has it affected us? It has affected us in a way that we cannot move forward because we're so busy looking back and holding people down, suppressing one arm of maybe the four legs. Okay, I don't believe they say Nigeria is standing on a tripod. I don't so much see it that way because that makes quite a lot of the minorities. I say minorities advisedly because you have minorities in the north, middle belt, you have minorities in the south in Nigeria. So I can't say Nigeria is standing on a tripod. I'll say Nigeria is like a table on four legs. So if one of those legs is not there, the table cannot stand. Thank you.
One of the rep members from the Imo State actually proposed a bill which was struck out, but I think they are planning to represent the bill. It was stated that they wanted a 6-year single term for governors and president. Do you think that would in any way foster peace, unity across the nation, and would finally, at the end of the day, destroy this thing about marginalization, which almost every ethnic group is feeling? Well, at least you know that your turn is coming up in another 12 years or in another 18 years, as the case may be.
I've not given it a thought. I don't see how it can help. I don't see how it can help, and I'll tell you why. If you look at the election, what will help us is to ensure that we have credible elections, that we have the results that reflects the wishes of the people. For as long as you don't have that, it doesn't matter who you have there for 6 years, who will serve 6 years and hand over to his like mind in a different zone, who will do another 6 years and hand over to his like mind in a different zone. I mean, this merry-go-round is my time to chop. I don't see what that does to help us. What will help us is to ensure that we have free and fair elections, credible. We vote in the right person. Wonderful. If we vote in somebody we think is right, and he ends up being wrong, we'll have to bear. That's our choice. Look at in the United States. They've just finished a grueling presidential timetable, and against the run of play to some people, especially the ones in Africa who keep listening to CNN, watching CNN. Everybody expected Kamala Harris to win. America overwhelmingly went the other way, voted for Trump. They knew what they were voting for. Okay? So once you have the person you have voted for in there, it doesn't matter whether the person is there for 6 years or 12 years or whatever, one month. So let's begin to deal with the right issue. Not is the Igbo's turn now to chop. No. It gets to the Igbo's turn, then they choose your Igbo person that they'll hand over to. I mean, how does that help you?
No,
It gets to the Yoruba turn, they'll choose who to hand over. How does it help you?
it becomes problematic. In fact, if you're looking at it from that perspective, given that it means that people, if you say we're going to go by votes, and given how deeply divided we are, ethnically, it will mean that a certain tribe who has the largest population would continue ruling.
No, that's not what I'm saying. You're not listening to what I'm saying. If we continue what we have now, we have an understanding that it goes north and then it comes down south. It goes north, it comes south. By the time it comes south, we may decide, south or southwest or southeast. Okay? It can be one ethnic group, there all the time. And even if it comes north, which one ethnic group would it be? Is it the Fulanis? They're not in majority in the north. I hope you know that. You know this. So once we have, that's the point I'm making, that once we have free and fair and credible elections, both in terms of internal democracy of the parties and the main election, we'll have the right people to lead.
Well, even with the current situation, we still have that issue. I mean, it's back to the South and the Southwest, who had actually ruled, at least from 1999 to 2007, is actually having a second bite.
It's not their fault. They had primaries in APC. Tinubu won the primaries. We had Igbos who contested. I mean, Wondeon was there. Ken Namani was there. Ujua Henye was there.
In spirit of fairness,
In PDP, you
and
had
equity, there are a group of persons. Remember, it's not the population of people in the South that voted for him to represent the party. It was a certain group of persons. And those people were skewed. I mean, we know politics in Nigeria, so it's not really democratic.
No. Once it is the wishes and reflects the votes of the delegates, it doesn't matter who emerges. Once it is the wishes of the party and reflects the... Because even if you nominate or you present a candidate that Nigerians don't like in your party, through your internal democratic way, and a different party presents someone else who Nigerians will prefer, you've lost the election already. The moment you begin to have free and fair internal democracy process, then you begin to think of who do we present to Nigerians. That's the point I'm making.
Interesting. Thank you so much. I mean, it's been one interesting discourse with you as always, Bernard Tiaba. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you,
very much for
sir.
having me. I'm really delighted to be here once again. Thank you.
All right, we're back shortly after this. Do stay with us.